Meeting of the Troy Zoning Board of Appeals to order. And before we launch into business, a brief introduction about the board and our procedure tonight. The board is a group of 7 of your neighbors or peers appointed by City Council to pass judgment on requests for variances and other matters that are brought before them. A variance is a relaxation of the literal provisions of the zoning ordinance. Petitioners must indicate a hardship or practical difficulty running with the land that would warrant the granting of the variance. Tonight, the board will hear the items in the order that they appear on the agenda. When an item is called, the chairman will verify that the petitioner is present. Then the city administration will summarize the facts of the case. The petitioner will then be given an opportunity to address the board to explain the justification for the action requested. After the petitioner makes their presentation and answers any questions that the board may have, the chairman will open the public hearing. Any person wishing to speak on the request should raise their hand, and when recognized by the chairman, come up to the podium and sign in on the sheet provided. The speaker should identify themselves with their name, address, indicate their relationship to the property in question, for example, they're a next door neighbor or live behind the property, and then state whether they are in favor of or against the variance request, and then give reasons for their opinion. Comments must be directed through the chairman. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and closely pertain to the matter under consideration. Only one person will be recognized by the chairman to speak at any one time. At the conclusion of public comments, the chairman will close a public hearing. Once the hearing is closed, no other public comment will be taken unless in response to a specific question by a member of the board. The board will then make a motion to approve, deny, or table the request. In order for the request to pass, a minimum of 4 votes for approval are needed. If the request is not granted, the applicant does have the right to appeal the board's decision to the Oakland County Circuit Court. I introduce to you the members of the board and also city staff that are present tonight. Starting on your right is Michael Bartnick, a board member. Next to Michael is Thomas Stratt, who is not only a member of the board, but also is our liaison with the Planning Commission. My name is Dave Lambert. I'm the chairman. Next to me is our vice chairman, Alan Neal. Next to Alan is Bill Fisher in the middle. And then on the last member of the board, but certainly not least, is Ken Courtney. From city staff, we have our zoning and compliance specialist, Paul Evans. And then from the city attorney's office, we have Susan Lancaster. And with that, we'll launch into our agenda with a roll call.
Mr. Courtney.
Here.
Mr. Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. Lambert.
Here.
Mr. Stratt.
Here.
Mr. Bartnick.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you for calling the roll. Looks like Mr. Clark, as of right now, is absent for the meeting. And when we call up the petitioners, we will indicate to them their opportunity if they would prefer to defer action on the item tonight, because we don't have a full board, but we'll leave that up to you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May regular and study sessions and the June regular meeting. Is there a motion or any questions on the minutes? I know Mr. Bartnick had some questions on it. Did you want to address any of those right now?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think, well, I know that there is a copy of my email from this afternoon, and then I've received a response back from Mr. Evans, which indicated that I think there's a final draft that incorporates many of those, and I think that Mr. Courtney has had a chance to look at them. If not, I'd invite his comments. But my concern was to try to develop the minutes that took into account what I had said as comments, I guess, 2 months ago, as well as what Mr. Courtney had said.
Is this the last copy?
Well, it should be. It's the last copy that was sent out, yes.
Okay, it only shows, it doesn't show the 2 resolutions that Mr. Bartnick mentions.
Right.
See, with the 2 resolutions that Mr. Bartnick mentions and the comments about the discussion and the chair's ruling, with those corrections made to the minutes, I would then move the minutes.
Okay. So you
I would second.
So a motion, but I'm going to ask for a separate resolution for the June meeting minutes, but there's been a motion made and seconded to approve the May regular and study session minutes. Moved by Mr. Courtney, seconded by Mr. Bartnick. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we're ready for the roll call on approving those minutes.
Mr. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Lambert.
Yes.
Mr. Stratt.
Yes.
Mr. Bartnick.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
The motion passes, and those minutes have been approved. The reason I asked for separately for the June minutes is because, well, number one, the May were kind of complicated, so I want to deal with that. Secondly, on the June minutes, there was one item I wanted to ask, I guess in particular, both Mr. Bartnick and Mrs. Lancaster, a question. In the minutes, it does not reflect the fact that Mr. Bartnick had indicated a statement that he had a potential conflict of interest with the Troy Days proposal. Is that something that should be incorporated into the minutes?
It should be. It should be incorporated,
Okay.
yes.
Well, then I would move that we approve the minutes from the June meeting with that additional language incorporated in there. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Fisher seconds it. Any questions or discussion on that motion? Mr. Bartnick?
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Just in general, I wanted to comment on the minutes. I think there's a temptation for us to rely on the video of the meetings as an official record of the meetings. And my concern only is that I think we need a little bit more detail in the minutes as opposed to less detail in the minutes. I'm not suggesting that we need a transcript, but I've watched some of our meetings at 5 p.m. on Friday, and there's a reason why they're on TV at 5 p.m. on Friday. It's because nobody is watching television at 5 p.m. Our meetings are boring. So it's really not fair either to the members or to the members of the public to have to go to the meeting video to watch it to find out what happened. I think that we should try to have some more detail in the minutes than what was in. It was a short meeting last time. It was non-controversial, but I think we need a little bit more detail going forward.
Okay, thank you. Is that something, Mr. Evans, that you can maybe provide a little more detail in future minutes?
I can see what I can do, yeah.
All right, great.
Sure.
I know it's a tough job to do because you're doing like wearing two hats right now, so.
Yeah, well, you know, and the decision was made to try to go to the video. Yeah, so we'll see what we can do to provide some more detail, and we've been working well together so far. We'll continue to work together.
Okay, great, thank you. And so the motion on the floor is to approve the June meeting minutes with the addition of Mr. Bartnick's disclosure of his potential conflict of interest. It's been seconded. Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we're ready for the roll call.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Bartnick?
Yes.
Mr. Courtney?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
The motion passes. The June minutes are approved with that additional notation. And we're on to postponed items. The first one is a variance request from Minal Gada and Ashish Manik at 4820 Livernois, and I believe Mr. Evans has indicated he's received some correspondence from the petitioner.
That's correct. They have requested that the board postpone this matter till August 16th, 2011, which is the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Is there any questions from board members? I know some of us are wondering how many times it's going to be postponed. I guess it's up to the discretion of the board how lenient we wish to be with the petitioner, if we want to postpone it for another month or if we want to dispose of it tonight. It's up to you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Neal.
question for staff. Did they give any, Mr. Evans, did they give any input that they for sure would be here in August?
No.
No, okay.
Right now, the property is designated a historic resource.
Yeah.
They would have to get some certain action from the Historic District Commission, and it's not clear to staff exactly where that's at or when that will happen.
Any further discussion by members of the board? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Neal.
I'm sorry, just to follow up, does that mean before they can really come to us, they need a read from the Historic Commission first?
I believe, informally, he's indicated to me in discussion that he's considering doing something with the house, either moving it or something, and that may have an impact on the size variance he needs for those lots. These are only ideas at this point.
What's the pleasure of the board? To give the petitioner another month or any preference?
I'll move to Table it until next month.
Mr. Courtney has moved to postpone action on this until our next meeting in August. Is there a second to that motion? I'll second it. Any discussion on the motion postpone?
The only other thing is that next time I either want to hear arguments or else a resolution to deny.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Neal?
I would agree. Maybe my vote is if they're not able to come forward in August, we'd vote to deny it.
Okay. Maybe that might be something Mr. Evans could pass along to the petitioner, that we're being patient up to a point, but we would like to see him reappear in front of us in August with some indication of which direction you'd like to go.
Gotcha, we can do that.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? Roll call on the motion to postpone till August?
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Abstain.
Mr. Bartnick?
Yes.
Mr. Courtney?
Yes?
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Motion passes. It's been postponed till August with the request that the petitioner try to come back at that meeting with some kind of clear indication for us on what direction to go in. Okay, next is actually a hearing of a case, a variance request from Aida and Samad Hermes at 6763 Donaldson Road. Mr. Evans, could you present us with the facts of the case?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located in a single-family residential district south of West South Boulevard and east of Livernois Road. On the overhead, it's the parcel to the bottom of the map that's highlighted in red. More specifically, it's close to the intersection of Lovell and Donaldson. The property in question and also all surrounding properties are zoned single-family residential. And there's a close-up of the property front portion they're going to add on to the garage here, and that's what the subject matter is regarding. Essentially, what they want to do is add on to the existing garage, and the city ordinance regulates the size of garages that are attached to homes. Now, the request has been changed from the original application. The applicant has indicated to me today that some of their numbers were not correct. They provided some correct numbers, and the amount of variance is less than what was published. What the ordinance says is that, well, what they want to do is add on 2,965 square feet to the existing garage, and the ordinance restricts or limits the size of the attached garage to 75% the ground floor footprint of the living area. So basically how the numbers work is they're adding what they describe as a proposed covered driveway and a proposed garage. The ordinance qualifies both those as a garage, so they're adding on, with the revised numbers, 2,307 square feet. Now they've got an existing garage already attached to that house, and that's 660 square feet. So when we add the existing and proposed, the total amount of square footage is going to be 2,967. Now, 75% of the ground floor footprint of the living area of the house is 1,952 square feet. So if they are successful tonight, they would need to receive a variance of 1,015 square feet. Now, I'm going to back up here. This is the front of their house that shows the existing garage. The discrepancy, or the correction, I should say, was with the size of the covered driveway. There was a typographical error, and they can explain to you, if necessary, how that came about. And this is an elevation drawing showing, if approved, we've got the existing garage there, and this is what it would look like from the front. And there's additional architectural drawings in the board packet. So if they're successful tonight, this is what they plan to do.
Mr. Evans, a question. So really, it's that covered driveway which really pushes them over the limit. Is that correct?
Well, because the ordinance classifies the covered driveway and the proposed garage in the same category, it has a roof over it, it's considered accessory. I don't know if there would be any more argument to say that that pushes them over as opposed to the garage with walls pushes them over.
Okay. Any questions from the board for city staff? Yes, Mr. Courtney.
Yes. If they didn't put the cover over the top, can they build the garage in that location?
I'd have to take a closer look at it, and I'll be able to do that.
It's possible anyway.
It's possible. We'll take a look at setbacks.
Well, okay.
Yeah. And perhaps the applicant has examined that possibility and might even be able to answer that question for you.
Any more questions? Mr. Bartnick?
Yes, there's at page 71, there's a second floor plan showing a room, a bedroom, a bath, a walk-in closet. Are those modifications being made to the existing house, or are these proposed to be put onto the second floor of the proposed garage addition?
You know, I'm not certain, and perhaps can I defer to the applicant for the answer to that question?
Thank you. And then I did have one other question, Mr. Lambert. The parcel of property is 5 acres going from Donaldson west to Livernois. Do we know or have any record, or do we need to know even how many times the property has been divided and whether it can be divided anymore under state law?
I don't know. I don't know if we, I guess it's up to the board if we need to know. I don't know how many times that's been divided.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more questions for city staff? Seeing none, we'll invite the petitioner up to the front, or the petitioner's representative, and be sure to sign in on the sheet there. And before we go too far into the proceedings here, just I kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting. We don't have a full board tonight. We're missing one member. It requires 4 votes to pass anything, so you would have to get 4 out of the 6 of us up here to approve it. You have the right to ask us to postpone this for another month if you'd like, or if you'd like to go ahead in front of the full board or the partial board tonight. It's up to you.
We'll go ahead.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and introduce yourself and then present your case, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. My name is Sarmad Hermes. With me is my wife, Aida. We live at 6763 Donaldson. We've been Troy residents of that place for the last 20 years. Just to address a couple of questions that I heard, we have never divided the property in the last 20 years, and I am pretty sure that the previous owner, who also owned it for the previous 20 years to that, has never divided the property. So I'm pretty sure of that, at least in the last 40 years. As to the question about bathroom modification, no, there is no living space above this garage at all. There is no second floor to it at all. The bedroom is just moving a shower stall and a door in the existing second floor of the house.
He asked if it was addition or modification. It is modification, but it's in the master bedroom.
It's a modification for moving a door from one place to another. Our request, and I think the chairman summarized it really well, is basically we're building we would like to be allowed to build a 3-car garage, an ordinary run-of-the-mill 3-car garage. It's not a shop or anything. It's 1,190 square feet, 34 feet by 36 foot. And that with the existing garage would be well within the ordinance limits, but our problem is, like you said, that we're proposing to cover the driveway also. Covering the driveway gives it a very nice look. At the beginning, we didn't think it was a problem or anything. We didn't think of the driveway as part of the structure. So really, we're asking, I mean, like Mr. Evans summarized it, we're asking for the variance. What pushes over, makes us ask for the variance is the consideration that the driveway is part of the deal. And I would say we need this, we want to add the parking and we want it to be convenient to us. We don't want to add it like way in the back somewhere and have to either pave a long area, or, walk through mud and stuff. So in order to be able to do this, we really need to make it like an attached garage. From our point of view, it's not a requirement that we cover it, but covering it makes it look really good. We have our neighbor with us, John Havrilla, who lives next door. I've spoken to the person who lives north of us, and John lives south of us, north of us, across the street from us, and 2 doors away, and showed them the plans, and they all think it's really nice. So we're hoping that the commission will see it this way and grant us our request.
Great.
It is the covered driveway that is pushing us beyond the limit.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Stratt.
Yeah, in order for us to approve your variance, we have to show a cause, something that is actually, what is the hardship that you're run under that we can actually approve the variance? What is the hardship? Now, see, all the other things are really great, and I understand the intent, but what is your hardship?
Well, fortunately, we're not handicapped or anything like that. We have 3 children who drive cars. When we moved into the house, we had 1 2-year-old son. Now we have 3 children. They are in college.
Now, let me ask you.
They have cars. We just want to have covered parking.
Let me interrupt you. What is your intent for the existing garage in the future?
The existing garage stays as a garage. You can
Now, what I
park.
was- Well, okay.
We can remove that from being consideration as an existing garage. That would be fine if that's the requirement. But it's there.
We can only park 1 car now in our 2-car garage.
I understand.
because
I understand.
the tractor-
I'm looking for a rationale here in order to justify
Well, the
it.
rationale is that we need to add, we won't die
Where's your
without
hardship?
it.
Where's the hardship?
The hardship is we have, it's a large lot, large house, 5-person family, we need to park our cars. That's
And
the,
we have 5 cars, and now it's very hard to clean the snow when, a
No,
long
you don't.
90-foot setback.
Really, I'm all for this project. I really would like to have this go. I think the intent of the ordinance was to discourage a monster garage or something that is going to be very not appealing. I can see this is going to be really very, very attractive, and I can see this would be a real asset to the community. But I've got to have a reason for a hardship to vote on it. And I've got to say, what is the hardship? And that's, I don't know how I can explain it any differently.
We have 5 acres we have to maintain, we have 2 tractors. Now, with the tractors being in the garage, we can only park 1 car, so we are hoping we can put our cars, everything enclosed where it's not like, we don't have like a parking lot look outside, and we still can put our tractors, lawnmowers, and in a garage.
Are your children living with you right now?
Yes?
Are they young, old? How old?
My oldest one is getting his master's degree, and the second one is in Oakland University. And
Are they going to
the
be
third one-
leaving you pretty soon?
No.
You don't think so?
when they get married.
You don't think they'll be leaving you and you'll need that additional garage for anything?
No.
Any living space in the garage?
When they get married, they'll leave, but as long as they're not
You'll
married.
have grandchildren that'll live in a garage, maybe? The existing one? Okay.
I think what Mr. Stratt's trying to do is give a rationale that you can give us as to why we would approve.
We have actually discussed adding, putting our laundry and walk-in closet and stuff like that in the existing garage, which, but that's not an immediate plan right now. In that case, then the existing garage would disappear, and we'd really need the additional part. Mr. Chairman, may I say something? I know I'm beating a dead horse, but the covered driveway is see-through. It doesn't obstruct any view from the street.
They made that determination. We can't do anything about that, but did I understand you to say that you were going to convert this garage into a future use, therefore there's a hardship there or something like that? Is that what I'm hearing?
We have small laundry room. We've talked about adding the laundry room there and the walk-in closet, because our closet space on the first floor is small, and then that would allow not having the car there and being able to park the car in the new garage, we can do that modification there.
So you want to actually build this, but in the future, you're going to actually utilize for other purposes, so therefore, there's a hardship in the operation of what you intend to do.
And it would add to the existing, to add the old garage to the
Oh, that-
existing floor space.
Okay. Does that satisfy the, what I just said? What did I just say? I don't know. Ms. Lancaster may be able to.
Well, it's always difficult in these situations to tell you if you've stated a practical difficulty or not, but you're working along the right track, and it's really up to the board to decide if collectively you think there's a practical difficulty. We just need you to make a record of what your thoughts are, and you're doing that tonight.
Mr. Neal, you had a question?
Comment, kind of a question. It'll be a question really for the board, but in hearing the information here, and I fully agree from an aesthetic point of view and use point of view, I would very much like something like you have that you're proposing. But in light of the fact that our zoning ordinances have recently changed, and you may not be familiar with the zoning ordinances and the conditions that we can render an opinion, I'm wondering, and also in the fact that we are one board member short, I'm going to put out there a suggestion that perhaps it might be best to review your situation over the next month, look at the hardship terms and what's defined as a hardship, and come back to us and maybe make a second presentation so that we could then render, all of us could render an answer based on your best efforts as far as a characterization of the hardships you face, so that we can give you the most fair and appropriate answer. Because I think right now there's a disconnect between what you want and what we're able to function with. Because we have a very narrow mandate as a board. And I just want to make sure that you're given as much due process as possible. So I put that out as partly a statement, but also a suggestion to my colleagues that maybe that's the best way to handle this.
Any further questions for the petitioners? Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you. I just wanted to verify a few items. The doors, the size of the garage doors for the vehicles, those are, it's to be 8-foot overhead door, it's not taller than that?
It's not taller than that.
You're going to be putting in typical non-commercial vehicles?
No, I assure you, this is not a shop, not a welding shop, not a mechanic shop, not any kind of a shop. It's to, it's to park our existing, we have one SUV and 2 cars.
All right, thank you. And if I may ask you a few more questions. You have a beautiful view from going west, almost like a meadow, natural trees, grass, woods. If you were to put this garage back behind the property, what would that do to your view?
Well, it would obstruct the view. Our original idea was that, but then we'd have this big thing there with a lot of concrete.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions from the board members? I think what Mr. Neal's suggestion was that, and this will be up to the board to decide if they'd like to do this, but we would do it based upon your suggestion, was maybe come back in another month after you've had a time to kind of absorb some of the questions and comments made by board members, which you'd be able to come back to us with what you believe the hardship is in granting the variance. And if that's something you'd like us to do, we could take that up as an item of business here and then deal with this next month. Plus, we'd hopefully have a full board here. So that's, up to you completely to decide that.
I have to to defer to you. I mean, it's,
So you're going to leave it up to us then? Okay.
We really want to
We're
help you.
hoping that we get it now so we can start on it before the weather, you know.
but we have to defer to you.
Okay. All right. Any more questions of petitioners? Mr. Courtney?
Yeah, I would suggest, if this is tabled, I would suggest that you make an appointment with staff and discuss about how much existing garage would have to become living area.
Actually, we have a plan for that. We've had a plan for a laundry room in that area and a walk-in closet.
Well, you might want to check with him and see if what you have planned in the future would take care of our immediate problem.
Definitely.
And I think the comment, Mr. Stratt's comments and Mr. Bartnick's question too about the obstructive view might be things that you would look at and coming back to us with more information that would help us render a decision that would be consistent with the city ordinance and would meet your needs as well. Any more questions for the petitioners? Seeing none, if you could have a seat, then we'll open the public hearing to hear from possibly one or two of your neighbors on what their thoughts are on this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We will open the public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak to the board on this issue is welcome to come forward at this time. If you do wish to address us, make sure you sign in on the sheet there on the podium.
My name's John Hevrell. I live right next door to Ida and Sarmed. When I first got the postcard, they were out of town and they came back in town, and I talked to Sarmed and he showed me the plans, and I thought they were very nice. He's done that in very good taste there. Kind of caught me off guard too on the carport, because I wouldn't have considered that part of the square footage area, but I've lived next to them for 20 years, and they're super people, and they've done they've been great neighbors, and I've had no objections at all to what they're doing, because they generally do things in good taste, what they have there. So, that's all I got to say.
Any questions from Mr. Havrila?
I live just to the south of them in the on the 2.5-acre parcel on there to the at 6737.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else that would like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for further deliberations. Mr. Evans.
And I have an answer for Mr. Courtney. You asked if the, just the garage portion could be placed where they want to place it as a detached structure. The answer is no. Detached structures need to be in the rear yard, so it would have to.
Forgot about that.
Yep.
Yes.
The size would be okay.
Size is fine.
So if they could
Okay.
move that,
Okay.
yeah, the non-covered driveway part to the back, that'd be okay. Mr. Bartnick, in regards to your question, just doing some math based on the 5-acre size of the lot and the minimum lot size for that zoning district of 15,000 square feet, they could get 14.52 lots, and that doesn't take into account roads and things like that, but that just gives you an idea of the density that could occur there as a maximum.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And I should indicate also the communications we received from neighbors. We have one neighbor that is opposed to the variance. We have another neighbor that originally was opposed, but when they, I guess, talked to Mr. Evans and got more information, they've changed their opposition to support. And then we have one other neighbor who is in support of it as well. And is the board, yes, Mr. Bartnick.
I guess I had two other questions, or one question of the city staff for the board's consideration, I guess. You know, the ordinance has changed. Are we still allowed to consider the fact that minor technical variation in the ordinance, we could grant there would not be a problem? Or secondly, under the former ordinance, we were able to consider natural features on occasion. Are we still permitted to look at those factors as part of our decision process?
Yeah, I think you can do natural features. For example, there's natural features that interfere with someone doing what they want to do on their property that everyone else is allowed to do, that's definitely something you consider in the, I'm not sure I understand the nature of the first part.
Under the formal ordinance, but for, I think the language was but for the technical interpretation of the ordinance, the structure would have been permitted on another typical lot in the same area or having the same features. And I recall that having been one of the factors that was used in decisions under the formal ordinance.
I'm not sure.
For example, perhaps a corner triangular lot, an owner of a triangular lot may not be able to put an addition onto that house because it was 10 feet away from the lot line as opposed to 15 feet, whereas if it was another lot that was rectangular in the same subdivision, they'd be allowed to do, they wouldn't even have to come to us.
Yeah, actually, one of the characteristics, the review standards that we have in ordinance now is exceptional characteristics of a property, including perhaps the dimensions or layout of the property. Is that going in the direction of your question?
Yeah, because I'm looking at this sort of not as a small property, but, if somebody on Lovell or 2 or 3 streets south was trying to do this on their property, I could see where that would be a major problem. But this whole street is full of large lots, and I think it's from my view anyway, I hate to use the word just, but, that carport or that roof, yes, it is a structure, but the whole purpose is, I'm looking at the 6 standards here, under 15.04E2, and to me it meets it, but, that's just a judgment on one member's interpretation.
Well, certainly each case is based on its own merits, and in this instance, we have what you see as a typical garage, but then the other portion is described as a covered driveway. So certainly the board has to consider each case based on the unique aspects of the proposal. So maybe that's something that can be considered as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
Just to along those same lines, there are enough criteria in the way they're stated that basically you can use your common sense to pretty much reason together as a board and all of the comments I heard tonight would fit in one of the categories under the new ordinance. I know that sometimes it's difficult because they're worded, but they're broad enough that some of the things that were said tonight can be considered either pro or con. So it's kind of difficult to get tied up in the way that language is worded. And Paul and I actually have talked about possibly, or he's asked me to maybe somehow or other put together a memo about what kinds of things you could consider as practical difficulties to make it a little easier, and I'll be happy to look at doing that for you. But basically, you have a requirement that you have to find those facts when you're making your motion and also when you're doing your discussion. But all of those things, especially what I've heard tonight, now I don't know if I'd always agree with you on other nights, but it seems like all of the things you said tonight were things that could be considered.
Okay, Mr. Stratt.
Yeah, it's just that I have a little problem with interpreting the technical aspect with the request being the size. So there's 2 different things here. If it were setback requirements, I can understand that, or a feature, I can understand it, but we're dealing with the size variance. And what worries me is, with respect to the purpose of this was to discourage the white elephants that we had, the big garages that we had, which was commercial for commercial use. And the intent of that was to block that, but you can't possibly legislate every possible condition. And we have to have some leeway somehow to allow this condition here. This is really, I'm all for the project, looking for a way to be able to justify it, but I'm sure that they'll come up with that with you, Paul, handling it the way that you have.
We've sat down to discuss it, so, we try to get the wheels turning, so to say. Most people don't have experience.
Yeah. But we're all supportive of it, I think, at least.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Neal.
The only comment I would add is that conceptually, from a use or desire, I am supportive of it. But in light, in taking into account what Ms. Lancaster has indicated about how we process the information that we have and compare it to the statute, the regulations that we have to apply, I don't feel that I have the proper information yet to allow me to vote for it. However, with the changes in the regulations as they've recently occurred, I think to some degree the petitioner may not be aware of what some of the terms are and how best to make their best effort. I see no reason with us not suggesting strongly that they meet with staff over the next month to put their best foot forward. I think then we can give them the most fair reading. I think it's essentially what I said before. I just, right now, I would be forced to vote in a manner where I wouldn't want to. I'd like to approve it, but right now I would have to vote no, based on what I'm hearing. So, that's my opinion.
Any more questions or a motion from the board on this variance request? I would agree that a postponement to next month would be appropriate, considering some of the questions that have been raised, and ask the petitioner to come back with some, after talking with city staff, some information on the actual hardship that you require the variance. I think the other concern I have too is to make sure, because I assume that this ordinance came out of the monster garage dispute, that this covered driveway, which I agree with Mr. Strata, it's going to look beautiful, but make sure that that covered driveway never gets enclosed in any way. I don't know if it's possible or not, but to make sure the petitioner is not ever able to enclose that, which would make it, I think, a worse situation, would definitely violate the spirit, if not the letter of the ordinance. But I think postpone to next month to allow the petitioner to meet with city staff and to come up with some more concrete information would be something that I would be supportive of. So move. Mr. Courtney moves, and Mr. Neal seconds postponement on this item until next month to give the petitioner an opportunity to come and meet with city staff and come back with more information for the board. Any discussion on the motion to postpone? Seeing none, a roll call on the motion to postpone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion to postpone to August 16th, 2011. Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Bartnick?
Yes.
Mr. Courtney?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes. The motion passes. We will see you back in August, and make sure, Mr. Evans will be happy to give you his contact information if you haven't talked to him yet, to sit down with him and get the information you need to come back to us. I think, as Mr. Strata indicated, I think the board believes your project is worthwhile, will look nice, but we need to have concrete information for us to approve the variance request. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is any communications. Do we have any communications from either staff or from the board?
I've just got a couple of comments.
Okay.
Our IT department is still working towards getting our videos, the videotapes of our meetings, on the public website so people can look at them at any time. They realize that it is not happening as fast as we wanted to see or as they wanted to see, so they have not given up that effort, and they're continuing to pursue. One thing we've done with the Board of Appeals website is broke down the digital agenda into smaller downloadable packets. So if neighbors are interested in, say, only item 4A, they don't have to download the whole agenda. Some of the feedback has been that these digital agenda packages are very large, which they are, and some people have had trouble downloading them. So we've broken it up. It's similar to how council does theirs. And we're going to actually apply that to the Planning Commission, too. So those are a couple of things we're doing to try to make it easier for people to see what's going on when they want to.
Okay, thank you. Any more communications? I guess this is kind of a reiteration of the communication that what came out of your office, is that I guess the legal department is still reviewing the potential rules for the ZBA, and so maybe those will be coming back at our August meeting. Is that?
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
We actually have reviewed it and presented to Paul recently, like today. What we're suggesting is the new revised, which you're going to see, and all of you can revise also.
Great. Yes, Mr. Bartnick.
I would just inquire if we can get that as soon as it's ready, as opposed to waiting for when the agenda comes out, if that's a possibility.
Sure, we can do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any I see no one from the public here, so we will dispense with public comment unless somebody appears immediately. Next is miscellaneous business. It looks like there is no miscellaneous business in front of the board unless somebody has an item to bring to us. With that, we are adjourned until our August meeting.